What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Some of you may have seen, and if you haven't, I will leave a link in the description below. But some of you may have seen the recent video that I made discussing how to create an efficient battle group within the game of Steel Division 2. And this is the battle group that we made. It was a 5th Panzer Division, including all of these things. Now, today's video is going to be going over this as sort of a second pass to look at a few more intermediate things that you might want to look at, mathematically speaking, and pertaining to how the game functions. So, in order to help us do this, I've already taken the liberty of adding all of this information per phase to an Excel spreadsheet, but in the event that you don't know how to do this, there is a filter by phase option up here that you can actually toggle around to see the items that you're bringing in any specific phase and sort of do the same math that I've done for this deck, but in the future on your own decks. So this is a great tool. But yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to tab over to my Excel spreadsheet that I've created. So the blue one here is phase A. The sort of orangish, tannish, peachish one here is phase B, and the green one is going to be phase C. Now I've taken up the liberty of adding together all of the different cars that we're going to bring in per each phase, and that's these numbers down here. You can see that we've done a fairly good job of following that sort of 100, 140, and 170 scheme by bringing in 2200, 3000, 4860. But if we break that down by the income that we're going to receive in each phase, I think you'll see where we've made a few mistakes here. Obviously, in a perfect world, if you were absolutely prescient and knew exactly what your enemy was going to do in any given time, then you would want your income to be exactly the same as your available pool, as you would bring in the last unit every single tick, or every single phase that you had available that phase, and it would be absolutely enough. But we don't live in that world where we're going to be perfectly prescient. So knowing this, we're going to have some overage in each phase. That overage is discussed down here. That is how many points we're not going to be able to bring in per phase, and that'll be added to the next pool, to the next phase's overage pool, if that makes sense. And I'll go over it more when we get there. But during phase A, in a typical game of Steel Division with the balanced deployment type, we're going to receive 1750 points in phase A. Now, we've brought in 2200 points, resulting in an overage of 450 points. This isn't bad. Honestly, 450 is fairly low given how quickly we've put together this deck. So we might even be tempted to keep it there. However, we'll give it a look. In phase B, things get a little bit more rough. So we have an amount of cards in phase B that amounts to 3070. And that's resulting in an overage of 2120. When you incorporate all of the 450 from last phase we couldn't bring in, and then this overage here, that's going to result in this total overage. Being that phase B, we only have 1400 points coming in. 10 minutes in phase B, 140 points per minute results in 1400 points available. So phase B is looking a little rough. There's a case to be made for having some overage so you could plan for multiple situations. However, it seems our phase B overage is really, really bad. So we'll have to give that a look here in a second. However, our phase C deployments are resulting in 4860. Now, phase C deployments are such that there's almost no way to calculate the overage because you don't know how long any given game is going to take. However, what we can do for the sake of argument is assume that each game will last between 40 minutes to an hour, as this is a typical game. Games that go on for longer than an hour are few and far between, and typically are caused by just some manner of memery, as it were. Someone brought in nothing but artillery and you're waiting for them to run out of ammunition so that you can advance. One of your teammates fell apart. It doesn't matter exactly why this has happened, but they are very few and far between. In fact, I think I can count the number of games that have gone on for longer than an hour on one hand that I've been a part of after having played 600 or 800 games, however many I've played. But with this in mind, it will take us 41 minutes in phase C to bring in all of our points. So that is everything from phase A, everything in phase B, everything in phase C. Will take us 41 minutes into phase C, meaning a grand total of 61 minutes to bring all of this in. Now that's okay. That's not terribly over the completion rate. So we might not want to reduce the total number of points, but we might want to reallocate them, maybe shift a few things around. Try to get this number down to like a 35 minutes into phase C. Because the reality is that the majority of our games are going to be between 30 to 45 minutes long. Before it's clear who the victor is going to be, and prolonging it is just kind of detrimental to both teams. So what we're going to look at now, with that in mind, let me drag this onto the off screen so that I can keep an eye on it. With that in mind, we're going to look at the actual deck. We're going to see if we have any duplicate units that are kind of solving the same problem in each given phase. Now, we already said that I liked my phase A. My phase A was good. It has all of the things a good phase A should have. Maybe a little duplication here with the 2 cards of tigers, but I think that tigers are good enough in any phase that we can justify the overage there. All in all, I'm very pleased with this phase A. Phase B, however, we had a lot of income, or a lot of points available, and not a lot of income to supplement that. This is where we're going to have our Panther A's, Panther A Furors. That's kind of a wasted redundancy there, as well as Tiger E's. Again, it's performing the same task nearly. We have Martyr 3's. They're probably not tremendously helpful for us. Our AA is fairly decent, our artillery is fairly decent, and our planes are fairly decent. So we're going to be mainly focusing on, I think we're going to cut down on some of these redundancies here, and we'll maybe move the, no, I think that's going to be the biggest solution that we can come up with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these Panthers here, I'm going to drop the card out, and I'm going to bring them in phase C instead. Now our phase B allotment is 2 tigers and 2 panthers. Let's immediately take that over to our Excel spreadsheet. We had 2 coming in at 130 points. Where is that? Or 4 of them, because I had grouped in the commander. So we're going to change that down to 2. Should update everything. Now our overage goes down to 1860. Much better. Still not great though. So let's look at a few other areas where we can swap some things around. Now, these martyrs here might not be incredibly useful. That frees up another 2 points if we get rid of it, but I don't know if there's anything better we can do with those 2 points. We could potentially bring in some more artillery, or, and this is kind of what I'm leaning towards, I'm going to bring in some phase B Pack 40s. That's going to be more reliable than the martyr, and it's also going to be cheaper. So we're going to find where we had the martyrs in here. It was 6 at 50, so we're going to change it to 3 at 60. That's going to bring it down. The overage is getting yet smaller. Let's see if there's anything else going wrong here. The next thing that we're going to do, we have these guys coming in phase B. What if we drop them down to 1-star veterancy instead of no-star veterancy? That way they're going to increase their combat efficacy. We're going to have a reason to bring in these Panzer Grenadier Führers. I like it already, so we're going to do that. We're going to find where they were. I believe it was 15 at 30 points, so we're going to change it to I had miscalculated this. Give me 1 second. 35 points. My goodness. Okay, so our overage is still getting better. We could fiddle around with this some more. Some of it is exacerbated by this Bef Tiger coming in. The Bef Tiger's something that we can either bring in phase B instead of some tigers to try and keep up with our pushes, or we can delay it until phase C. However, I'm fairly happy with that right now, and honestly, this overage is just going to translate into the phase C. We've already brought our time to complete down to 38.23 minutes, so that's already been a tremendous boon to us. The next thing we're going to look at is our phase C complement, and kind of try to dwindle that down a little bit. So what I mean by this, and the main reason that we're doing this in the first place, is if I have all of these cards right? Say I bring in all of my tanks first and I bring in infantry to supplement them and so on and so forth. Now, at what point does it take for me to get everything on the map? That is this 38 minutes plus the earlier 2 phases, bringing me up to 58 minutes. Now, do I want to have to wait 58 minutes to get all of this massive amount of stuff on the map? Or do I want to raise veterancy here and there? Well, all of our tanks are already at 1-star veterancy, and I don't like raising them further than that, as it's really easy to keep tanks commanded. But we have artillery that's at no star veterancy. We have anti-aircraft weapons that are, with the exception of the Flak 43, at no star veterancy. Our Panthers coming in the recon tab, and our infantry are all at no stars. So we're gonna drop these guys out. We're gonna bring them in at 1 star. That brings us down to 18 instead of 27. So we're gonna immediately update that. 18. The recon, I think we lose a lot on the veterancy shift. Yeah, so we're gonna keep that at 5. However, let's look at a few things down here. So we have the Flak 4188. Let's bring them in at 1 star so that they're better at hitting things. And these guys too. So we're gonna drop those by half. This is 2 here and 2 here. Boom. We've gotten us down to 33 minutes into phase C before this is actually all brought in. Let me make this easier to read by adding in an additional sort of statement. So now that's going to give us our time to completion, including the earlier 2 phases. Don't know why I didn't do that to begin with. So we've gotten it down to 53 minutes. 53 minutes is not bad at all. That is a little over a typical game, and it's going to give us some overage so that we can make choices rather than just trust our own intuition. However, I don't think we're done yet. We have these 100mm artillery pieces. Maybe I want to change them out for the Hummel. That's not a great exchange rate. Maybe we can get 2 of them at 1 star. So we're going to do that. Now we're going to go back here, bring that down to 2. And, you know, just make a few changes here and there. Now, the main reason that I'm doing this is because veterancy is so important. Just by raising Panzer Grenadier, for example, to 1 star instead of no stars. So let's bring him out of here, because for some reason you can't edit the or look at the difference in veterancy if they can't be added to the deck. So going back to phase C, we had them at no star veterancy, 27 of them. It was going to be near impossible to bring in that many, and it's certainly not beneficial for us to bring in a heap of infantry all at the same time, as more often than not, that's just going to attract the ire of some sort of a plane or artillery beast, and just going to result in you losing a lot of things all at once that you couldn't have microed anyway. But we bring them up to 1 star. We have gotten a 7% accuracy increase on both of our main weapons, a 1% on the machine guns, excuse me. We've gotten an additional, what is that, 20% rounds per minute here. Quick math, 20% over here, 20% here. So we've just gone across the board and we've made this card of units, on average, about 20% better. Now, how is that going to translate to the game? Well, instead of having to wait until 1 hour and 1 minute to bring in all 27 of our 1 card of Panzer Grenadier, we're instead going to bring in 18 Panzer Grenadier, but they're going to be at a much better veterancy. And we could even, if we are feeling particularly brave, we drop this down to 2 stars. So now we have 9 coming in at 2 stars. These guys would be able to operate further from the front lines, given that 2-star veterancy, and it drops our point value even further. As soon as I can find it, I believe it was that one. So we've gone down to 50 minutes to get all of these guys in. Now, obviously this is all up to you, and I would be remiss to bring in a unit at 2 stars rather than just micromanage my units to make sure I had them all next to command of any kind. However, like I said, that's going to be mostly up to you. What I'm trying to hammer home with this is I see a lot of decks that are made among friends, among other players and such not, that are these gigantic gigantic decks, these really top heavy phase C decks that even when you're playing a Juggernaut build would take you an hour and a half to bring in all of the things. And it's very impressive to look at it and see 153 squads of infantry, 104 tanks, 500 or so this, that, and the other. Obviously that's hyperbolic, but though it's very impressive to see that, the reality is if my Panther performs better at 1 star and trades better, being that it's at 1 star, then it is going to be better than having twice as many Panthers because of how long it'll take me to mobilize those and how much more brain power it's going to take for me to micromanage 2 Panthers versus just micromanaging the 1 really good Panther. Now, obviously, this 20% boost in some instances isn't going to be a tremendous buff. It's maybe going to be the difference between beating 1 additional squad of infantry or pinning down 1 thing before it gets to you. But these changes add up over everywhere. And the reality is the number of times I've seen people bring in these globs of infantry that are just kind of bombed to death unceremoniously, it's massive. It's huge. It's just bringing in this glob that is tempting the enemy team to bomb you. But yeah, I really wanted to get on here and just kind of take another pass through this deck, because obviously the first one that I made, I made it in a few minutes and it certainly wasn't perfect, but we're getting a lot closer to perfect now with this 5th Panzer Division than we were before. We've gotten it down to 50 minutes to bring in all of this stuff. The overage in our Phase B went down by 500, give or take. Phase A, we still have some options. All in all, this is a fairly good deck now. We could even think about swapping these planes over to Phase C, maybe bringing them in at 2 stars. Planes are another great example of what to bring in at 2 stars. So a plane, even though this is a terrible example as you can't bring it in at 2 stars, a plane, you obviously can't get command bonuses onto a plane. So whatever veterancy you bring it in at, that's the veterancy it's going to be at. So a plane at 2 stars, especially your ASF, as each increment that you raise these planes actually helps their agility. The ME410 at 1 star is a very bad agility. Bringing in at 2 star, it becomes just bad. Not great, but you know, it is something. The FW190 is another great example. It goes from agility bad to agility medium. So these are great examples of where you can cut a few things to make your deck a little bit better. The majority of the thing that I really feel strongly about in this video is that if you're using these units properly, then the fact that you're bringing them in at 1 star veterancy and you only have 34 tanks in your 5th Panzer Division doesn't matter, because if this Tiger kills more than 120 points of the enemy team, then he was worth bringing in, if that makes sense, or if he denies more than 120 points or so on and so forth. However, if that Tiger comes in with 3 of his buddies and 2 of them immediately explode because they're at a low veterancy and they've taken a poor engagement or something like that, and you couldn't micromanage them because of how many you have on the map, then they're not paying for themselves, they're not paying for anything. So the reality is, and Davis wants to play with me, the reality is that you are going to be better served 9 out of 10 times by bringing in units at a higher veterancy if you find that you're unable to bring them in. After your first couple games with this deck, you might find, you know what, I'm just not able to bring in these howitzers. So maybe think about bringing in another Cardiff map in Phase C, because that's kind of a fix your situation problem. Maybe you'd be better served bringing in a DO217J Tech 2 in Phase A instead of these bombers. But all in all, being that it will take us 50 minutes to deplete this deck and whatever's on the map will obviously continue fighting, I should say that this deck, given 34 tanks, 62 groups of infantry, 19 support, so on and so forth, will be capable of boxing an enemy deck with superior numbers, because they're just not going to be able to bring in all of those things. Obviously, you can edit these formulae to be more of a Juggernaut sort of thing. So let's say that we've changed this to a Juggernaut. So go to 220. So now it's only going to take us 43 minutes to bring in all of this stuff. Obviously I haven't edited these other things. I don't really care to right now. The point is that the different deck styles are going to change things around, but not drastically. So we go from 170 to 220. What's the difference there? 7 minutes. So 7 minutes earlier, Juggernaut brings in all of this same stuff. While that is a huge boon to you in the actual heat of the moment, the reality is that even with our previous deck, they would have been hard pressed to get it all in there under an hour. And we are going to be far better served by these units being at a higher veterancy and using them properly because we're able to micromanage them better. But with that, I will stop hammering home the same point. I hope you guys have learned something, and this has been an intermediate pass-through of this deck to try and whittle down on some of the overages that we were having. Thanks for watching.